Mark your calendars for an extraordinary day of unity and spiritual elevation. Congregation Beit D.C.B invites you to the annual Unity Shabbat Kum on Saturday, May 24th, 2025. Where? At Shelf Lofts, Brooklyn, 120 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. This day is dedicated to praising and glorifying the Most High Yah, bringing together congregations, guests, and truth seekers in a celebration of unity, love, peace, and harmony. Join us for heartfelt prayers, inspiring teachings, and uplifting music that will resonate with your soul. Be part of this transformative experience that strengthens our community bonds and deepens our spiritual connections. For more information and to reserve your spot, call us at 347-622-9090 or email us at info@baitdcb.org. Let's come together in faith and fellowship at the Unity Shabbat Kum. You won't want to miss it. Shalom.
By the rivers of Babylon, yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, praise, and glory to the Most High, King of the universe, Yehudah, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, praying that the Most High God will bless each and every one of you, and praying that the Most High God has blessed each and every one of you during this week. Early Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there. I pray that everyone has been blessed with the endeavors of their minds that they desire in righteousness. And I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to guide our steps and our paths in a way of righteousness before Him. Giving due respect to the leader of our congregation, even my brother, Chief Prince Jeriel Ben Yissaskar, praying that the Most High God be with him, his family, his household, that the Most High God will continue to bless him and keep him and continue to guide his thoughts so that he might lead God's people in a righteous manner. Also praying that the Most High God be with all you who listen to us on a weekly basis and continue to come back to the channel and think that what we have to say is worthy, what the Crown Prince has to say is worthy. So we pray that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of you. And I bid to y'all Shabbat Shalom Aleichem. Like I said early, Shabbat Shalom as this show is taped or recorded early in the week. So before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share the contents of this channel, even this video. And also don't forget to press that notification bell so that anytime we upload something new, you will be notified. We also ran the Unity Shabbat commercial early. We're probably going to run it again at the end. But stay in tune for that May 24th. Don't forget to come out and support. As many people, many Israelites from all over the globe, we could say now, come to this event yearly. They make it their business to come to this event in order to enjoy the time with us and with all of you who show up. So, come out and support and have a good time and fellowship with your brothers and sisters. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik? Hallelujah. Are you? Go ahead, finish. Hallelujah.
Praise.
repeat that whole intro because your mic wasn't on the thing. Started from the beginning.
Okay.
And with that, hold on. And with that, I'd like to introduce one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Much better, Baruch Hashem. First of all, giving praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Through respect to the platform, I'm on a D.C.B channel platform, Spiritual Leader Chief Prince Yehudah ben Saska, to the host Chief Uzael, to the Prince's Chiefs, Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and the early Shabbat Shalom. Now, this last week, I said I would come back and touch on a little bit about key to Saw, which I stopped at a certain point before I'm going to Wayaqhel. Wayaqhel is very interesting. Usually, Wayaqhel and Pekudei is read together, but this year is read separately. And I want to kind of segue from from actually Tisaway to Roma, all the way up to Wayaqhel. So what is interesting is that the last time we were talking about the people had built a golden calf, um, and that was one of the great sins that the children of Israel did. Within less than a 40-day period, while right after the Creator has spoken to them. And you say it's such a great, marvelous event that they stood at Mount Sinai and heard the voice of the living God speaking to them. And yet they say they don't want to hear from God anymore. But they got impatient, waiting on the designated messenger that they sent. So it's very ironic. And when we think about those things, how fast a person could fall off the derek, which means the path or the road, in righteousness. So we know that last time, just a recap, Moses up there for 40 days, 40 nights, and being taught by the Creator. And when he was being taught by the Creator, um, we read in Terumah, he had gotten information about the Mishkan. And then we need to bear that in mind, a certain order of events. And when he got information concerning the Mishkan at that particular time, the Creator already told him that before he left, that the people had built a calf. And he pleaded for him on the mountain. Then he came down. We mentioned that. That he came down from the mountain, when Moses come down from the mountain. And he seen it with his own eyes, that he broke the tablets, that the little hopes that the Creator had given him, carved out by the Creator and written with the finger on it. And he wound up doing Reformation. And then you find out the tribe of Levi, he asked all those on the Lord's side, and said the whole tribe of Levi stepped over there and joined him. And he told him, man, pulling the sword, was a slaughter going on. But when you think about 3,000 people compared to, roughly over 3 million people, that's a small percentage. But it was enough. That small percentage made such an impact on the moral outlook of the whole nation as a whole. And what is interesting is that the Shabbat that's just passed is called Shabbat Parah, and it talk about the purification, and dealing with the red heifer. So I'm not going to get into that today, but what's interesting is that just like Moses was able to say all those on the Lord's side, come over here. You figure, shouldn't Aaron, who was raised up with them people, should have had that same kind of ability and influence to say, all those on the Lord's side, who are going to back me up against this protest, against this atrocity? So that is, very interesting in the sense that what kind of demeanor Aharon had, because Moses just come down, he angry, and he said, all those on the Lord's side. And he told them to have a slaughter. And if it's only 3,000 people that was actually slaughtered by them, then shouldn't have been enough people that Aharon could have been able to say, look here, straighten this mess out. And then we know her was mentioned, as being left in charge with Aharon, and we don't hear anything about him. So most people, according to tradition, they say, he was slain in the melee when he resisted. So that's another story in itself. So now we have Moses going back up in the mountain. So I'm gonna pick it up from the 33rd, just a little bit. 33rd chapter, and we're gonna take it from pretty much. Let me see what should I pick it up at. I'm just gonna read a little bit from the 7th verse of the 33rd chapter. Now Moses used to take the tent, and to pitch it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. So this is important to know. That's from the 33rd chapter, 7th verse, that Moses' personal tent was called a tent to meet with God, would commune with him from there. And it came to pass that everyone that sought the Lord went out into the tent of meeting, which was without the camp. I mean, he even distanced himself outside of the camp from the people. And you must say, how far is that? That's some of the questions you might consider. And it came to pass when Moses went out to the tent, that all the people rose up and stood, every man at his tent door, and looked after Moses until he was gone into the tent. So now it makes it seem like it's not really that far. So you got to ask the question, is he out the camp or in the camp? Or what do you consider out the camp? And it came to pass when Moses entered the tent, and a pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tent. And the Lord spoke to Moses, and when all the people saw the pillar of cloud stand at the door of the tent, all the people rose up and worshipped, every man at his tent door. And the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend, and he will return into the camp. But his minister Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tent. Now, this, and I read that for a thing, because we always had this thing, like I say, when Moses pleaded for the people, where was it and how many times he ascended the mountain, which the question came up. And now the tent of meeting is one area, all right, where, at this time that he set his stuff out. Now time frame is a unique difference, and I'm gonna try to hopefully give you some insight and share some information of time frame. In the 12th verse, it says, and Moses said unto the Lord, see that thou sayest unto me, bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou hast sent with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now, Moses said, I found grace in your sight. Now, therefore, I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy ways, that I may know thee, and to the end that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, if thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence, for wherein now it shall be known that I found grace in thy sight, I and thy people. Is it not that thou goest with us, so that we are distinguished, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth? I read that in this area here, not only showing you a relationship that Moses had, but later on in Deuteronomy, when it says, Wayaqhel, the Sitra Ekhanan, Moses saw grace. He had grace here, and grace is different. It says, not because of what I've done, not because of my achievement. I want you to go beyond what I've done. Beyond if I had any merits. Don't count the merits. And he had, a test before the Creator that I did get grace at this time. We read about the first man that's mentioned about, had grace, and that was Noah. The first time you read about anybody having grace was Noah. So it's interesting when you read this here, a little bit of story concerning the incident with Moses and the dialogue. In the 17th verse, it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, that thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name." And he said, "Show me, I pray thee, thy glory." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy." And he said, "Thou cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon the rock. And it shall come to pass, when my glory passes by, that I will put thee in the cleft of the rock, and will cover thee with my hand until I pass by. And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back, but my face shall not be seen." Now, the main part, I'm going to read it into this here. The 34th chapter. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which thou didst break. And be ready by the morning, and come up in the morning unto the Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me on the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount." And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up in the morning and went up into the mount, unto Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded. And he took in his hands 2 tables of stone, and the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord, God merciful and glorious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy unto 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visit iniquity of the father upon the children, and upon the children's children, unto the 3rd and unto the 4th generation. And Moses made haste and bowed his head to worship towards the earth, bowed his head towards the earth and worship. All right, so now that's where people think it's only twice. But when you go into Deuteronomy, like I said before, he had to plead for him. He let you know in detail that he went and pleaded before Aaron, and like to the first 40 days. So that's why when we go to Deuteronomy, this is just a brief synopsis of the whole ordeal. Also, some interesting points as I'd like to go before I finish, and it says interesting points and key to solve, which I neglected to mention last time. That normally when you have, the Sitra is broken down into 7 partial, and everybody come up making aliyot, to come up, the aliyot, they're going up to the beam of the high place, of pulpit, and to read a particular section. Now, normally, you always ask to say, well, how do they divide the section up? You get 7 readers every week. And with the 7 readers that you have every week, you have, they always traditionally say somebody must be a Kohen to come up first. Then it had to be somebody from the tribe of Levi to come up next. And then anybody else could come up, for the next 5 on during the Shabbat. During the weekdays, it's just usually a Kohen, a Levi, and then somebody from Israel. So when we look at that, we say, okay, how did it decide how long the first person, the Kohen, read, how long the Levite read, how long the next person read within that? But the sages come up with that in the book. That's why I see certain portions, and some people that have a Masoretic text would say this first section, Rishon Shani or Shilishi, the readings like that, when a person will come up and read, especially on the Hebrew side. But there's rules governing that. But when it comes to this particular sidra, Kitasa, then it's, and usually when they break it down, they try to break it down where it's anywhere between the range of 10 to 20 verses respectively, especially when you look at the sidra that happened, before that, you test away, you will find that, respectively, the first reader might have read maybe 14 verses, and then second reader 18 verses, then 13, 18, 19, 9, and 10. That's the reading for the 7 people that will come up. But when it came to Kitasa, then the reading was the first one, the Kohen, 45 verses. The second one, 47 verses. And then third, 5 verses, fourth, 7 verses, fifth, 9, then 6, 17, then the 7th, 9. So you say, well, wow, that's an extensive reading, especially from the scroll itself, that the first one is read 45 verses, and then the next one, 47 verses, and you're talking about a Kohen and a Levite. And the reason they focus on that, and this only portion that's done like that, and in the book, when they deal with the Sidra Kitasa, is because, according to most viewpoints, the tribe of Levi had nothing to do with the sin of the golden calf, and the whole tribe assembled together without, any hesitation to go ahead and execute judgment. Whereas everybody else had somebody pretty much from their tribe involved in it. Now, that's one of the views they have in reference to that. Now, we know Aharon fashioned it, but, we know Aharon didn't believe in it, but he fashioned it. And his sin was that he actually made it, put hands on, in that sense. And there's a lot of talk in reference to that. So that's why only in this particular sidra, Kitasa, that you have the sin part, the part that the second one where the Levites, they read the whole portion concerning the sin of the golden calf. The second reader, where he gets 47 verses, it covers the whole portion of that area there, because they say they don't want to shame anybody from the other tribes that actually has somebody participating within that. So I figured I'd just share that bit of information with you, for, just for curiosity's sake. Now, in the 34th verse, it said, the 34th chapter rather, and before I get into Wayaqhel, and the Lord said unto Moses, all right, we read that part up there. Okay, I read it there. Okay, we're down here. Oh, let me skip down. All right. After he gave the 13 attributes that were mentioned in the 34th chapter that finish up, going towards it before the 8th verse, before we may transition, that those 13 attributes, Moses was taught how to plead to God, how to remind God of what he did. So the Creator is teaching Moses this is his approach. And then also, when to see his glory, there's always a lot of speculation about, no man can see my face and live, when he passed by, see the backside. And there's always a lot of controversy, especially amongst the, my Israelite community, but the thing is that everything that's mentioned here is something that he can reflect in history, that he can look at in history. And it gives a way back on how to plead if a person wants to make, teshuvah, repentance. And so that's why, this particular prayer, is said often, from time to time. All right. So now, as we go in the 9th verse of the 34th chapter, it says, and he said, now I found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let the Lord, I pray thee, go in the midst of us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thy inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels such as have not been wrought in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which thou art shall see the works of the Lord I am about to do with thee. That it is tremendous. All right. And then it goes on to talk about who he's driving out before us in the land. And it mentions these 6 nations, Amorites, Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. There were 7 nations at first, but now we just mentioned 6. So that's something to pay attention to. One nation that's mentioned, that's not there, not a problem. And then it goes on and tell you, that the 14th verse. All right. But what's interesting before we even get to that, why do a person remind, you have an attorney, and I mentioned this before in past times, that you don't want the attorney admit, yeah, my client stole, yeah, my client was a thief, yeah, my client, me violated and park over here. Moses used, you want the attorney to keep that part out on your defense and speak about something that, that could save you from the charges. But Moses, spoke and agreed with the Creator wholeheartedly, because it'd be hard to disagree with the Creator. That's number one. But he agreed with the Creator that this is a stiff-necked, people. And that's one of the things about that. He used that and said that stiff-neckedness could be used for good. So he agreed, yeah, they are stiff-necked. I'm not going to argue that they're not. But the good side of being stiff-necked is that if they down for something, they 100% down for it. We know a lot of people like that. Some people, you got to try to use their their points, their character that might not seem too appealing, and say everything in life has a value. One of the things I always use as a reference point is that when they talk about the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he said, okay, if it's a tree of knowledge of good and evil, what side of the tree is good? What side is evil? What part of the fruit should I bite? What part of the fruit I should spit out? Not consume. But it's interwoven because they both is necessary, and both of them have, value in it. So the thing is that's why we had to talk about the Yisrael Hadarah and Yisrael Tov, the good inclination, the bad inclination concerning the heart. So I just want to just move on just a little bit, and I'm going to get into Wayaqhel as well. And so the 14th verse said, we said, for thou shalt not bow down to no other gods, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. All right. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go astray after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and they call thee, and thou eat of their sacrifices, and thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go astray after their gods. All right. So, right there, and make thy sons go astray after their gods. All right. So you notice how the wording here is unique in the 16th verse, and I want to point it out. I'm going to read it again. And thou take, of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go astray after their gods, and make thy sons go astray after their gods. All right. So you notice it never even mentioned about we giving our daughters to them, but yet it's implied here. But yet it's mentioned that the men go out and get them women to try to, change them over. One of the hard things, especially in these days and time, it gets somebody outside of your way of life that you got to try to convince to come into this way of life, and say, well, I observe, the law, statutes, and judgments that was given to the prophet Moshe. This is what I do. I observe Shabbat, I observe these laws, and I eat this particular way. But a lot of times people will agree temporarily, but very rare. I mean, very, very rare to a person that you can evangelize, especially more so with women though, evangelize, get them to come into this way of life, and stay. Now, usually the men have a better shot at it than the females, and not to be, sexist and stuff like that. But usually, they have a better shot at it because if you're talking about authority in a household, then that's the upper half. Whereas we just passed the thing about Purim. And anybody that's familiar with Purim, and I just want to highlight that, not to focus on it too much, but just to highlight some real truths. That Esther was married to a heathen king, an alcoholic, uncircumcised individual, because they weren't practicing circumcision in that area. And we read about that even those that read the Apocrypha, that she abhorred, means utterly hated, the bed of the uncircumcised. She's a queen. She's faithful to her husband, but she's not convincing them to serve our God. She's a good wife and obedient, and he letting her do what she wants to do, but he's still king and living the way he lived. And that's and when you look close into the story of the Purim story, and Esther, read the book of Esther a little bit more, and then also look at certain things in the Apocrypha, you'll see that if Esther didn't really campaign to be queen. So usually, if a woman pursues a man, well, they shouldn't pursue. Maybe use a different word. Usually, when a woman that's in a certain way of life, get a man that's outside this way of life, outside of the way of life she's in, that why should he actually change if he's the man? If you like him and see him worthwhile the way he is, then for him to change is not necessary what he is. So it brings a lot of problems. Because you have a compromised household. As long as he don't bother me and not do what I want to do, he do what he want to do. Then you got a coalition. You don't have a relationship or a marriage relationship. So these are some of the things to consider when you read this verse and look at it, and the Creator know that, and he's the best one, the best judge of that area there. So it's rare I mean, very rare, not impossible, but very rare that a woman meet a guy and he comes into her way of life wholeheartedly. That's very rare throughout the years I've been around, in amongst Jewish areas. Um, I'm saying that this is important. Now, a guy, he might compromise because, I don't see nothing wrong with that. And they had this saying, you know, happy wife, a happy life. And so I don't see what's wrong with that. But it's not about being happy, it's about being a righteous and God-fearing life. The thing is that we talk about joy on our holy days, not just happiness on our holy days. We talk about joy. So the thing is that happy, that don't mean it's a good life. That don't mean it's a good life. She's happy. But what about the man? Right. So these are some things to consider going forward, with the marriages. And the created curl portions of that. So much for that now. And it says, 18 verse. All right. First of all, 17 verse. I'm going to say, thou shalt not make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shall thou keep. 7 days shall thou eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib thou camest out of Egypt. All right. All that opened in the womb is mine. So we talk about that, and then it goes on about there with this 21st verse. 6 days thou shalt work, for on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In plowing time and in harvest thou shalt rest, and thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, even of the first fruits and wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man covet thy land, when thou goest up to appear before the Lord thy God 3 times in a year. That means right in there that a lot of people say, I don't want to leave home. A guy that live way up north got to come way down south. Say, well, what about my property? Who can protect it? I'm coming to serve God, but I got to worry about what's going to happen at home. And the Creator, say on those 3 times, but anytime you come to serve God, He gonna watch and protect you. That's what the surety what we have right here. And you notice they focus on agricultural festivals in that sense. Right now, I'm going to skip on down to 27th verse, and it says, "And the Lord said to Moses, write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel." 28th verse, "And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 words. And it came to pass, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai, the 2 tablets of the testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses knew not that his skin of his face sent forth beams while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face sent forth beams, and they were afraid to come nigh him." Now, imagine, before we get on to the 31st verse, they use the word beams, but the word is keren, which means horns. So that's why you had these different pictures. You see with Moses with horns, coming out of his head, forehead, because, that's what is translated from. They translate the word keren, which is horns. But whatever it was a sight to see, you know. But that it didn't happen the first time, and it happened the second time. It happened after he come down for the last time. All right, and so that's why most people think twice in this area here. And it goes on to say, 31st verse. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. Imagine your own brother scared of you now. Own brother shook up. He don't want to be around them. So Moses had to call on them. And Moses spoke unto them. And after all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandments all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. When Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But when Moses went before the Lord that he might speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spoke unto the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face sent forth beams, and Moses put the veil back upon his face until he went in to speak with him. Now, it's always a question how long them beams last. I personally don't know how long they last, but I would venture to say, and that's saying just my view, Crown Prince view on this area, that the beams didn't last forever. And the reason I would say the beams didn't last forever, because we're getting ready and go into our next section, Wayaqhel. And in Wayaqhel, we're going to have transition of certain types of holiness, so he wouldn't be able to outshine actually, the Kohanim, the Kohanim, in that sense. So I would say it lasted for a time. I don't know. Now, some might believe it lasts forever. I don't have a problem. You figure it lasts forever and people get used to it, but it seemed like every single day, he walking around with a veil on his face, and you got to stay isolated if you don't have the veil on, because, you make people, afraid. But, and he's telling them stuff and involved with stuff. So that's why, my view, just my view. Those might, you can leave your viewpoints in the comments and discuss it with your various teachers. But for my view, and I never really was, really interested in, going deep and searching. I used to ask questions from time to time growing up as a youth, but basically it lasted only for a short time, and that's in that respect. And then now we're in the Wayaqhel. And Wayaqhel, it starts off with a particular opening that I'm going to focus on right quick. And Moses assembled all the congregation of the children of Israel and said unto them, these are the words which the Lord had commanded that you should do them. All right. Now, one of the things, though, traditionally, if you do the math, if you went up, before the Creator 3 times, just doing it 3 times, and you count from basically from the time of the month of Siwan, give or take a day or two after the revelation, and then after that he going up and come down. All right, so he come down sometime close, 40 days later, and you calculate on the month, because we're talking about coming close to the 5th month, whatever it is, and then they have the sin of the golden calf. He straightened out things. Then he goes up to plead for him again, and he's up there for about quite a bit of time. Then he comes down and he gets a second set of tablets, and bring it back up. Now, one of the things is that, of course, the way you would think that he coming up with the tablets the first time when he's pleading at the same time, but to bring back something that's saying they already are good, they're already forgiven, before he gets this revelation and the testimony and still asks for it, it brings, it's problematic. So what you find is that when he went up and pleaded for him and seeing this revelation, then he was going back down and get the tablets, and we got the tablets and bring it up. So the Creator could inscribe upon them like into the first. Now, when we get into this particular portion on this year, when Moses come down, you figure he calculated 120 days in all, given a day or two in between, that you come close to Yom Kippur, in that area there. And we know that when it didn't take that long, basically, for them to build the Mishkan, give about 5 months or something like that, some change. So when we look in the second verse, and this is very important here, that Moses assembled them. So would Moses need to assemble them? And I'll just bring this out because the word "fahal," which means assembly, it's only used for people. You never use that for animals or anything else, or gathering anything else. You only use the word "fahal" for people, and usually on a higher level, spiritual level too. So so now when we find that Moses come back and assemble them, why he need to assemble them? If I'm expecting you back, I'm already assembled. So if you're coming back, I know you're coming back. I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm not going to break a move out or anything like that until you get back at this a prescribed time. Then I know you're coming back. So now, since I know you're coming back, I'm there waiting on you coming back here. So now I'm already here. So what Moses started off with is about talking about the Shabbat. Now, how many times we heard about the Shabbat? And that's what it says here in the second verse. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be to you a holy day, a Sabbath, a Shabbat, a solemn rest to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work therein shall be put to death. Now, and you shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. Now, I want to just bring out and elaborate a couple of things. Like I said, I'm going to have to visit this again when I get to Peku Day as well. This particular sidra is that, one, didn't we hear about the Shabbat way back in Exodus? We heard about it already. We not only heard about it in Exodus, which is 7 months later, but we heard about it with manna, already, and we got manna, 30 the first day of the second month. The 15th day, 15th day of the second month. So we got manna the 15th day of the second month. Then we heard about pertaining to the Shabbat. The first Shabbat 6 days later. The seventh day for the Shabbat to come in. That we hear about not doing anything, going out to gather anything on Shabbat. And the Decalogue itself in the Exodus, we read about not doing any work, keep it holy, and yet, and they talk about remember that. So we're talking about later than the manna part. And we hear that Mount Sinai, and in the third month about departure. So now, why is it now it's bringing it back up? And now we got a penalty, and we just heard about it in the last century. So why is it now it's talking about a penalty involved? And then most even difference is that when they talk about 6 days, should work, and do all your work, and the Sabbath is the Sabbath of the Lord. All right, that's what it says in Exodus. When we get here, it tells you difference that 6 days your work shall be done. So what is the difference when we look at it literally? And I advise everybody, with your teachers, or colleagues, friends, compare the two portions of Exodus when they talk about the Shabbat, and this particular portion when they talk about the Shabbat, because one, the Shabbat, a person working, he say, okay, when do I finish my work? I come to work, I got to make sure I take care of this, I got to take care of that. All right, now I got to stop. But here it's saying that your work will be done already in 6 days. Over there in Exodus, you doing the work. And over here, it would imply that the Creator would complete work for you when we look at it carefully. And I advise those that go into the Hebrew and check it both sides out, just to say, saving time a little bit. But, when you compare both portions with Exodus, and when you compare it right here, it's like, when I did enough work for the day, The Creator let you know that this work is done. Don't worry about it. It's already going to be completed. Sometimes people start a project and never complete it. Say, well, I'm just stopping, but I don't really see it complete. You have a standard, a time frame where the Creator said, look, you will be already complete. You say you reach the part where you want to stop, because the Creator going to make sure you complete it. Some people can work 6 days and doing their work and stop, work again another 6 days, do their work and stop, and they work for 6 years and do and observing Shabbos and all them other days, and their work is never ever completed. But here it will imply that the work will be done. Why is it focuses on the work will be done here? Because now we're going to have this vigilance about building the Mishkan. And say, oh, we got to hurry up and do this. We got to hurry up and do this. And it talks about, before it gets back into Moses assembling us, and it said, Moses, why you had to call us? Because if we calculate Yom Kippur, people there waiting on him. Don't need to talk about him. And we don't try to mix good times, two different events. So they're glad to see Moses. They already been forgiven. They already have a thing where, okay, God forgiving our sins. Now, everybody go home. He's learning other laws about, Shabbat and whatever else, Moses bringing out at the time. And then that's why I said, and Moses had to assemble the people. Why? Because now this is the first time they're actually going to be told directly about building the Mishkan and building it up. That information, when we read about Terumah, it was the information that Moses got on the mountain, but he never was able to share that with the people the first time around, because when he came down the first time around, these people was up there doing it, doing the boogaloo and everything else, and I was, in front of a calf. So I don't need to bring that information. I'm going up there now. I got a plea on your behalf. All right. Now, after I plead on behalf, God's okay. Bring up the second tablets, and I'm coming back down, and you see that you are forgiven. So now I'm not going to focus on that. I need to focus on other laws to keep you straight. And then the main thing is about the Shabbat. So the Shabbat keep us more than we keep it, in that sense. So that's the first thing it brings up here, and then let you know how serious it is. And then what's interesting, it uses fire as a prohibition. Now, well, we know there's like 39, um, toldot, different words. I mean, and works, malakos that that we're supposed to not deal with, malakos that we're not supposed to deal with. And it's based on whatever we had to do to build the Mishkan, and that's coming from rabbinic teachings, pretty much. I just want to share that with people. Why out of the 39, if it's 39 characters, why I just mentioned fire here? And in the book, we just mentioned gathering and carrying stuff on Shabbat. That's all we read in the book, in the scriptures. Fire and gathering wood. So now, if we just read that, how do they deduce the other 39 categories? And I mean, about 37, because 2 is given here. How did they deduce the other 37 concerning what is not supposed to be done on Shabbat? And they use anything to create the acts to dealing with working with the Mishkan. And then one of the questions, I'm just going to be brief on it now because I won't have time to elaborate on that. I'm going to focus on another point. But you could discuss that. But out of the most stuff that you could deal with, what is the most natural and easiest thing to deal with? Fire. Fire is the most easiest thing to deal with. And the reason is fire could be done naturally by, sun getting too hot, you get up on a bush or some dry things caught a fire. We those that live in California know about that already. And it's not already somebody set fires. You got some dry bush or grass, whatever, and catch a blaze. Or we could kindle ourselves fire. And that's the easiest thing to do. Making fire is easier than gathering and carrying wood. So it takes the easiest element, which could be actually the only one that could be natural, the only one that could happen naturally by nature, so to speak. And it used that as an example in reference to a prohibition, and that fire is going to be used and everywhere throughout the Mishkan, throughout the whole, lifestyle and development. So there's a whole thing concerning rulings and works concerning those particular areas there. So when we think about the prohibition of fire on the Shabbat, it uses the most easiest element, and it's a death penalty in that area, and it's a whole lot of halakha views. When I say rabbinic views, stuff about you know when it's when they're going to exercise the death penalty, whereas everything else is almost clean cut and dry as opposed to fire itself. So there's a lot of arguments on that, which I'm not going to go into now because that's not really what my platform is for. But and talking about throughout your habitation on the Shabbat day, period. All right, and then the fourth. All right, and Moses spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing which the Lord had commanded, saying, Take ye from among you an offering unto the Lord, whosoever is a willing heart, let him bring it, the Lord's offering, gold, silver, and brass, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and ram skin, dyed red, and seal skins, and acacia wood, and oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, and onyx stones, and stones for to be set in the ephod, and for the breastplate." All right, before I get into that, I want to bring out this point here. Is that Moses was supposed to go out and collect, as we read in Teruma. Not have the people bring it. He's supposed to go tent to tent. Are you willing to give anything towards the Mishkan? Are you willing to give anything towards the Mishkan? Are you willing to give anything towards the Mishkan? That's what Teruma states. Here, he reiterated, but then he's saying, but y'all need to bring it to show that you're enthused about it. I'm not going out. I'm not going to travel from tent to tent asking what you're going to bring with with a collector like a tax collector. No. So this fundraising project, if you really want to be part of the fundraising project, I'm not looking for you. You need to participate in the project. One of the things, just to segue a little bit, just a little bit, some congregations have pantries, food pantries. And don't you know that even in the pantry, that it's hard to get somebody, enough Israelites in the community just once a month to support and help and give maybe an hour and a half into helping distribute food, which they could partake themselves of the food that's kosher, you know. And it's hard to get Israelites to participate at least an hour and a half in a pantry. You got a lot of elderly people working, in the pantry. I mean, but some people have some time. I know some people work during the day in the pantry, whatever the case is. But sometimes you might not be able to, get there when they may be, giving out at certain hours. We'll say, do you need a cleanup crew? Can I help straighten out this? Can I help stack this? Um, do anybody need help to deliver some stuff to certain people? You know, these things here, I'm always was astounded, that you got a community thing that's good and it's strictly kosher, kasher food and stuff that's coming out. And it's hard to get the community, of Israelites involved in it, and this is something that we need to change, but I'm not going to focus on that. But I'm just showing the contrast here, how Moses was told to take from the people. And he said, look, um, just like he brought stuff for the, and supported that golden calf, I know what God told me. I'm telling you what God told me, but I want you to show God that you are willing to support an enterprise for him. And that's what the difference is, when the collection. And it goes on to tell you what the same items were and how they've been used. And then the 10th verse goes on to say, and let every wise-hearted man among you come and make all the Lord have commanded. And the tabernacle is tents and its coverings, its clasps, and its boards, et cetera, and all that kind of stuff. All right, that's dealing with it. And it goes on to talk about, and when we look at it carefully, and talk about the different coverings, the staves, pillars, and all that stuff, which we read already, hangings. But and then the 19th verse goes on to say in that chapter, to play the garments for ministering in the holy place, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments for his sons to minister in the office. All right. And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Moses, and they came, everyone whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whom his spirit made willing, and brought the Lord's offering for the work of the tent of meeting, and for all the service thereof, and for the holy garments. And they came both men and women, as many as was willing heart, and brought nose rings and earrings and signet rings and girdles, all jewels of gold, even every man that brought an offering of gold unto the Lord, and every man with whom was found blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair, ram skin, dyed red, and seal skin, brought them. Everyone that did set apart an offering of silver and brass brought the Lord's offering. Every man with whom was found acacia wood for any work of the service brought it. All right. And it says, and all the women that was wise-hearted did spin with their hands and brought that which they had spun, the blue, the purple, the scarlet, and fine linen. And all the women whose hearts stirred them up in wisdom spun the goat's hair. All right. Now, I want to bring out a couple of things here. But I know I'm not get a chance to finish all this whole thing. But what we find here is this. In the Hebrew, we mentioned men first here, but basically, in the Hebrew, it says the men came upon the women. So the women was first to support the enterprise, as most often in most congregations. As it seems like the women seem to support the movement a lot quicker than the men support the movement. And when it comes to doing wrong, I guess the men they step out there in some areas according to the book. And I'm not, being a man myself, I grew up in a camp where pretty much most things were done by men. When I came up in, as a youth, in Beni Zakin, that most of our feast days, anything that was done with the camp was pretty much done by men. The only participation most women's had during, the Kagin, the appointed times, anything we have, anything that we celebrated, observed, was they might make some cakes, make some pies. If they had something unique, that's it. But all the feasts, everything done, whatever we done was done by the men in the camp of Benizaki, and that's how I grew up. All the preparation, all the cleanup, and all that stuff was done by the men in the camp. That's the way I grew up. And, so it's it's a it's like a lot different these days when I view how things are done amongst most congregations. Um, and I'm a guy that don't like cooking or doing anything, but I had to do that. Even roast lamb over the pit, skin the fleece off a lamb, which is you know job that I really didn't care for, but those are things I did, coming up personally. And then, but it was normal for brothers from Beni Zakin to do certain things, you know, tear the fat off a chicken and all that kind of stuff and all that. Build the pits. We had these makeshift pits with bed springs over some stones and stuff like that. That was our grill. We did all that kind of stuff. Even one time we had to slaughter one on the property, snuck it in, and did what we do. but and that's pretty much what we had. And we had some really, dynamite feasts in our time. But that's another story. But here, when it deal with this particular area here, you find that the women was really supportive, more so. And you don't read where the women's actually had problems with that. I mean, dealing with the calf more so the men was dealing with that. And that's why I mentioned about the rings, nose rings, and all that kind of stuff again here, because Aharon said, take it from your ears, your wife ears, and your sons and your daughters' ears. And then you read where they just took it from their ears, not from the rest of the family when it came to the calf. So, and when they talk about the women's work, the women's actually did the weaving. When you talk about all the women's that hard, that means that they didn't bring the material; they worked the material. They weave cloth, weave fabrics, twisted cords, dyed. Or this is what the women did. You know, on the spindle, whatever they did. Like you read in Proverbs 31. You know, they actually did that, and that's why it's on the women so much in this area here, the beautify the place, and said who heart stirred them up and and wisdom. So now he use a lot of terms about the heart, and when we use a lot of terms concerning the heart, what we find here is this: that most people think about the mind, the brain. The brain process information that's given to you. So it process, analyze, but it's information that's fed from without. And that's what the brain does. There's very few, just now they're starting to realize that the heart actually think a little different than the brain. So that's why the scriptures knew about it years ago. When they talk about the heart, why it's hard. Now the brain, it takes information. Either you took it, from somebody else, they're giving it, and then you analyze and process it, categorize it. That's it. So that's what the brain does. But the heart itself, the actual heart itself, it has a feel like a Geiger counter for what is right and what is wrong, what is necessary and what is not necessary. That's the heart. And have to focus, and that's the thing about the Creator promised us a new heart. So, and that's the first organ, in the embryo. Then, the brain is second. So it's something to consider when we use these different things. All right. Then it goes on and it talks about but one of the things to talk about when it was talking about in the early part of the Sidra, and I'm gonna stop in a few minutes before I'm gonna get to the main workers. All right, yeah, I'm gonna stop before I get to the 36th chapter, which is so much more I need to bring, but I'm gonna stop right there. Um, and then pick it up next week when I conclude it. So when we find and think about the actual items in place. It talks about, and when we analyze it and look at it, when we did go in Wayaqhel, it talks more about the inner furnitures first. It talks about the Aron itself, and then it talks about the actual, um, you know, the table of showbread. Then it talks about the actual incense. Then it talks about the menorah. So and certain things are used like the you know, when they talk about the those three items, most places you get the house first and then you furnish it. Here they talk about the furniture for the house. Now we know that what's unique about that is that when we talk about the Mishkan and stuff, and something which I'm gonna touch on maybe later on again, is that when you get furniture, a lot of times you might have a problem coming in the door with the furniture. So that could, argument. So we were talking about, you need the furniture first. Most times when we shop, you know, um, you look for the house, and then you talk about how I'm gonna furnish the house later. There, the creator talk about the furnitures for the house, and then he focus on the house building, which is strange, in that sense. But that's another story you could discuss as well. I think I wanted to point that out. And also, what we find is that they use the term, bidet, which means poles. Bidet, itself means poles that you would carry certain items in. There's 3 items that's actually carried and in there with poles. And one is the Ark of the Covenant, and then you got the table, the shulchan itself, the table for the showbread that's carried on poles, and then you got the altar incense. Now on the outside, you got the brazen altar, also is carried on poles. And what I want to bring out is that all those items that I mentioned, the poles, after you carry and bring it to its location, the poles are set to the side. But when it comes down to the actual, the Ark of the Covenant, the poles stay in. And so when we look at the numerical value, of that, and when we talk about the day, which is the bait being 2, the dalit being 4, and the yod, the yod being 10, itself. We focus with a number that's unique in this particular, related to this particular portion here, when it comes down to the poles. All right. So, when we come up with the number, 2, 4, and 10. All right. So that's 16. So when you see, think about what you could come up with, that unique number in the word bidet for the poles. All right. And I'll leave that one for next week for you to discuss and go through it. And also, when you talk about the abner itself, which is actually the the sockets, and the sockets actually it got the same root as Adonai, which is Lord. And what it do is actually support, the base, the floor, and the roofing part, the upper planks. So when we think about that, it's like the Creator Himself supporting, with heaven, He keeps, heaven and earth in alignment. That's why I said, as I will is done in heaven, let it be done so on earth. So it's like the Creator holds both of those things together in itself. And so we get a lot of messages behind that, which I'm going to bring some more next week in reference to it, and in reference to this particular portion. And when we think about the actual things that's transported, you say, well, okay, the other poles are set to the side. It's no pole given for the menorah, but yet everything else is carried with poles. And also you say, well, why is that pushed to the side? In the south, so we know the menorah is actually carried different from the shulchan, from the both of them mezbiah, the altar incense and the altar that's outside, and the ark itself. And then why those poles are taken to the side and put to the side after you finish the transportation with the arks, can leave his poles within it. So we have, a lot of things that's going on that, I'll probably speak on a little bit next time in reference to that. And then a couple more things I have to bring. You have these characters in Bethel and Holiah. Now, and they talk about, have filled them with the Spirit of God and wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge in all manner of workmanship, and to devise skillful works, to work in gold and silver and in brass and cutting of stones and settings and carving of wood, work in all matters of skillful workmanship. All right. He had put in his heart that he may teach both he and the Holy Act. So a lot of times people have skills, but they can't transmit it. This guy not only have to see what Moses is talking about in his mind, which he never seen a replica of it in his life, and also he has skills to work in every facet of what he's able to build and that's under his charge, and he's able to teach people. See, a lot of people have skills, but they can't transmit it. and that's bad. You know, a lot of people would say, well, you know, I could build this, I could do this, and that, but I don't have the skill or the patience. They usually say they ain't got the patience, but they don't have the talent to transmit it, you know, with other people. And that means you got to be tolerant. And then last thing I want to speak on, you know, in reference to that, which I probably, you know, talk a little bit more. But these guys did everything. While we talk about the temple itself, you only had guys deal with in the temple, like the main major guy, Hiram, he just dealt with brass. This guy did it all. If you need to sew something, if you need to spin something, if you need to varnish something, if you need to cast something down, if you need to carve stone, these guys had that skill, and they was able to teach other people as well that skill. So it's in-house work, you know, that's really unique in this area here with these particular guys. And Bezalel was actually the grandson of Hur, who was left in charge, and then, you know, the tribe of Judah. So it's important to know some of these things here as we go forward, and even in the meaning of their names, it's unique. And then the very last thing I want to bring out in reference to um, these particular items here is that as we move forward with the Mishkan itself, is that um, we're going to discover a lot of unique things concerning the Mishkan, whereas that the fabric itself of the house of the Mishkan itself, that we have areas of stuff where we don't know what it means, where it come from, such things, you know, when they talk about the seal skin, the kosh, we're not sure about that, what it is. There's always a lot of controversy in reference to that area there. And when we talk about um, the actual um, crowning of the tab, and what's in the ark itself. That's the last time I want to talk about the ark. What's in the ark? I spoke on it roughly yesterday, last week rather. Is that the tablets that Moses broke the first time, that God gave him? Did they disappear? You think they just threw them away? You know, that's something to consider. At the next set of tablets that's done by Moses, carved out by him, and wrote with the finger of God, would it be just as valuable as the one that God did all by himself? You know, how many people want souvenirs these days? You know, so according to some tradition, it was still considered holy. And I gave an example about a guy that had skills and get dementia. He was a sage, you know, but he's no longer, you know, be able to talk up the way he taught, you know, teach the way he taught, teach. But he turned out some dynamite students over the years. So if he turned out some dynamite students, then he's worth being honored. So a lot of tradition would say the fragmented pieces that Moses had um, broken, that he didn't even discard it, that he took that and treasured that because that was actually from the Creator himself. And so it still had a certain type of holiness, so much so that when people have books, you know, in certain circles, you know, they bury the books with, you know, when they had the tetragrammaton, the Creator's name, and certain prayer books, certain Tanakhs, they bury it, certain prayer shawls, they bury it because it might have, you know, divine name on it. And, you know, that's a tradition they picked up later. But to show that even a broken piece of something that's holy is still worthwhile. And we get an example with the Maccabees when they actually got ready, you know what I mean, they got the temple and sanctified the temple. They said they didn't know what to do with the old altar. So they set it aside so that they could find out what to be done with it later. And they built them a new altar. And that's during the time of the Hasmonean period. So I think that's some what I said. I know I'm going to touch on that and finish it up with Peckle Day next week. There's a lot of information that's still left to be shared on Wayaqhel and Peckle Day combined. So what did I hope you got some out of what I said? Any mistakes by my own? And you can always leave a comment or a question on what I said.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did Holy Hob and Bezalel, did they get paid? And did the workers get paid? Or was it all because there was all the willing heart? Did they
Well,
service come as part of being willing hearted?
well, that actually they didn't get paid at all. Matter of fact, not only them, and within that particular situation, which I'm going to talk on more extensively, when you get to the 36th chapter, around 6th verse, is that they brought so much that not only they said all the workers said, we have more and enough to do the work, and the people had constraints. So they already was wealthy. They left Egypt wealthy. All right, so they didn't get paid to do the work other than the honor, from the creator. Because creating gonna let you do something for nothing in that sense, but not like a salary. You hired to do this, and so much so, which is a difference. I didn't want to make the comparison and go too far over, but Hiram was ordered to be sent back by King Solomon, not hired by King Solomon, ordered, but he paid the king of Tyre cities and different things, for the building of the temple. But the guy who happened to be an Israelite, you don't really paid him anything. And then when he made the taxes of the guys going in the forest of Lebanon to work a month and come home a month, about 12,000, that was a draft. And didn't say they was getting paid for it. So it's I didn't want to go into that, but it's a whole nother, manner of things. And we in BINAH King, we did a lot of stuff we didn't get paid for. And when you had to restore, CHOKMAH, we didn't get paid for that. We paid outsiders that, certain things, but we didn't get paid. All us that put a hand in and doing stuff to, to refurbish CHOKMAH. So that's the same thing about giving. That's why it says, take from them. So that means even your time is part of the sacrifice, for the dedication of the heart. And that's one of the main things where that the workers say, look, we got more than enough to do the work. So they weren't looking to try to stash stuff on the side.
There you go. I mean, I thought of that too, but I thought it would be a good question for the audience because, when we read the Torah, it says, pay every man his wages, daily, right? When you hire someone, if you have it by you to pay it or whatever. So I was thinking in terms of the Most High, he likes to see servants being paid if they do a job. But the way you explained it, it was perfect, that everything was a point of, being a volunteer at this point. And
not only that, they had it.
They had it, right.
They had extra.
Right.
If you had to constrain them from giving, that means it's stuff I really didn't need.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that you could use it. And,
right.
And we got a lot of stuff around our own various houses that we really don't use them anymore.
Right.
You got shoes and coats and pants that you
hold on to forever.
You had that in the closet. When I'm going to break it out. It's too late now, out of season.
Right. Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. Praying that the Most High God continue to be with you, your family, and that the Most High God will bless you. And to everyone out there, praying that the Most High God be with all you. And that don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to also stay tuned for our Unity event and commercial. And may the Most High God bless each and every one of you.
Shalom. Pesach too is right around the corner.
Pesach, that's right around the corner. So hopefully we'll see Nasik up at our Unity event. He usually makes it, so hopefully we'll see him up here this year again so you guys will get to meet him. Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, family. Mark your calendars for an extraordinary day of unity and spiritual elevation. Congregation Beit D.C.B invites you to the annual Unity Shabbat Kum on Saturday, May 24th, 2025. Where? At Shelf Lofts, Brooklyn, 120 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. This day is dedicated to praising and glorifying the Most High YAH, bringing together congregations, guests, and truth seekers in a celebration of unity, love, peace, and harmony. Join us for heartfelt prayers, inspiring teachings, and uplifting music that will resonate with your soul. Be part of this transformative experience that strengthens our community bonds and deepens our spiritual connections. For more information and to reserve your spot, call us at 347-622-9090 or email us at info@baitdcb.org. Let's come together in faith and fellowship at the Unity Shabbat Kum. You won't want to miss it. Shalom.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.